Well, hopefully it'll.
There we go.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for joining our webinar tonight as we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly, the macro and micro ingredients in pet food. I'm Claudia Loomis, president of the newly rebranded CB Pet Market, formerly the Cherrybrook Premium Pet Supply Retail Stores. I'm still having a hard time getting that out, that we're in the newly rebranded CB Pet Market, formerly Cherrybrook Premium Pet Supply Retail Stores. I am moderating the webinar this evening, and I am happy to be co-presenting with Roger Harvey, our Nutrisource sales manager. Roger and I and our store teams have worked together for many years. Roger has a great deal of experience in and enthusiasm for pet health and nutrition. So it was natural for us to work together on tonight's webinar. And before we get started, I want to give you all a brief, as everybody is logging in. Hold on a second. I am. As everybody's logging in, I'm just giving a couple minutes, just seeing how many. Okay. People are tuning in now. Before we get started, I want to give you a brief overview of how the webinar is going to run this evening. The formal part of our presentation will last about 45 minutes. This will allow us time to answer some of your questions at the tail end. This is going to be an interactive presentation, and we will ask several poll questions as we move through the presentation. During the presentation, you can type your questions right into the chat bar at any time, and we'll just get to answer them at the end. And the poll questions, when we ask the poll questions, you'll be seeing them come up on the right-hand side of your screen. All your questions, when you type your chat questions in, will come to me directly. So you can name the brands of food if you have specific questions. However, when I read your question aloud, I will not call out any brands by name unless it is a specific question about Nutrisource, because this evening Roger can speak directly about Nutrisource or any of the KLN family brands of food. If we do not have time to get to your specific question, please email me directly, and I will do my very best to answer your question or to direct your question to somebody who can answer your question. And with that, I am going to introduce Roger and ask Roger to tell us a little bit about himself and talk a little bit about the KLN family brands of food, including Nutrisource, before we begin playing good cop, bad cop, talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, the macro and micro ingredients in pet food. Roger?
Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Roger Harvey. I'm going to be the good and the ugly tonight. So we got both of those covered. I've been with Nutrisource Pet Foods for 10 years now. Before that, I was a sales representative for a small distributor that distributed pet food supplies for 15 years. So I've got 25 years.
Roger, I'm sorry, I forgot. The first poll question, I apologize.
Go ahead.
Is which Cherrybrook location do you call home, or CB Pet Market location do you call home? If you guys could just take a moment to answer that question for us, all our store managers and our headquarters staff is always curious to know where our attendees have come from.
All right. Well, you guys are doing that. I can talk, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Please talk. Please.
Why not? Right. Throw it out there. Anyways, I've been doing this for 25 years, so I've got a real passion for pets and better pet health for the company, for our company, our companions, and stuff like that. There. So the Nutrisource story, I guess, started in a tree. The owner, Daryl Nelson, he fell from a tree when he was young, and he did not cry, did not make a peek. So he was nicknamed Tuffy. So that started Tuffy's Pet Foods. Him and his son took over or started a business in 1964 of Tuffy's Pet Foods and supplies in a small town in Perham, Minnesota. It's just like the town you live in, and just a small family community and stuff like that there. So the big story with us is we are a family like no other. Family owned and community run company is how we like to operate. The picture in the bottom of the screen there is Kenny Nelson, and then his son Charlie Nelson. Charlie is now taking over the business, the younger of the Nelsons. So third generation is what we're on as a company, which is pretty awesome. So some of the brands that we have the Choice line, which is a value line. It's a grain inclusive series. It's got a low price, high quality diet. The Nutrisource brand, which is what we're going to be doing most of the talking about today, is our core line. Multiple animal protein recipes, grain inclusive and grain free recipes, depending on which one you're looking for. We've got a Pure Vita line. Our Pure Vita line is a true limited ingredient diet. It is a single animal protein throughout every formula, and it's got some cool exotic proteins in it, kangaroos, venison. So it's pretty awesome in that aspect. Our brand new product we just came out with is the Element series. This is a high animal protein diet where 83 to 90% of the protein is coming from animals. And each formula has got 5 or 6 different meat proteins as your first 5 or 6 ingredients. It has a Good for Life Plus system in it. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on. And we're using heirloom and wholesome grains in those products. So,
all right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next poll. I can't get to my. I lost my mouse. Hey, Roger, can you get and publish that poll?
I did. Yeah, publish. I got to publish it too. Okay,
yeah,
there we go.
There you go. Thank you.
There, yes.
My mouse froze, so I am stuck. Protein sources in pet food should come exclusively from animal sources. True or false? Okay, Roger, I still cannot move my mouse.
Okay.
Sorry. If you can end, if you can end the poll. Okay, 75%. You're going to be doing a lot more work on this webinar tonight than you bargained for.
Do I get a raise?
Yeah, you're going to get a raise. If 75% of our participants believe that is false, that not all protein sources have to come from animal-based proteins.
All right. So let's talk about some good proteins that we have. Chicken is a good protein. Chicken meal. And when we're talking chicken meal, we're talking really about all named meats. So chicken, lamb, salmon, herring, venison, beef, all named meats are really good sorts of protein. So when you're looking at a bag of food, you want to see chicken meal, or whole named meats, lamb, bison, etc. And those are some really, really good animal proteins.
Roger, let's talk a little bit about the difference between chicken and like a meat and a meal, and a meat meal, so, like a chicken and a chicken meal, or a beef meal.
I get that question quite often. What is the difference between chicken and chicken meal? It's a very simple answer. The difference is chicken meal is chicken with the water taken out. So basically what happens is when we're as a manufacturer, as we're making the dog food and cat food, as we put in the ingredients before we cook everything, we put in chicken, which is 75 to 80% water, or we put in chicken meal, which is chicken with the water taken out. At the end of the cooking process, we have to take all the water out. So when you put in whole chicken meal as your as an ingredient to begin with, there's no water to be taken out. So at the end of the process, you're actually going to have more physical meat in that diet than you would have in regular chicken, because you have to take out all that water out of it at the end of the day. So the difference between the two is the meal is just with the water extruded out of the product.
Right. And pet
Before.
food right. And ingredients in pet food are by weight. So a chicken breast is going to weigh more. A whole chicken breast, going in would weighs more, but it weighs less coming out, when it's processed, than an equivalent amount of chicken meal. Right.
Yes.
So
Oh yeah, exactly. Yes. So for you, those of you that don't know, any ingredient in any panel in any product, it has to be listed by weight. So if you flip open over a bag of anything, the first ingredient is going to be the most prevalent ingredient in there, and as you go down the list, then those ingredients get less and less to make up that final product.
right. So, knowing, named is better than unnamed. And so when we talk about some of the bad ingredients in or bad sources of protein, the first one on the list is meat bone meal. And that is actually an ingredient in some of the bargain pet foods on the market. And the reason why that's not a good ingredient is because it's a byproduct. And I see, the next one on the list is a byproduct meal. But meat bone meal is part of the rendering process from slaughtering. And there, even though it is a source of protein, it's also about 50% protein, but about 30% ash. And ash is a high mineral content. So it's really a very it's not a good source of protein. It's not a high concentration source of protein, and it has a lot of stuff in it that you don't want. The most pet foods should have is maybe a 5% mineral content. So if the majority of the protein coming from your food is coming from a source like a meat bone meal, you're getting protein, but you're also getting a lot of mineral content and other things that are going to come with it that you don't want. Meat and bone meal is also used in as a fertilizer. So when you're talking about good sources of protein, you're talking about like chicken and chicken meal and lamb and bison, and don't forget fish, salmon, whitefish, herring. You're talking about like kind of food grade meat, even though, but when we're talking about byproduct meal and meat bone meal, we're talking about like a feed grade type of ingredient. So we want to be really careful, because you're not getting the same type of quality ingredient that you're getting. And then you move down the list and you see corn gluten meal. Well, corn gluten meal, the gluten is the protein portion of any kind of a grain. And so it is a split ingredient. We'll talk more about that when we talk about carbohydrates, but it's a fractured ingredient. So what they've done is they've extracted the gluten so that they could elevate the protein level of the food using a vegetable, as opposed to an actual meat-based protein. And vegetable protein is not as readily digested or as bioavailable to an animal like a dog or a cat, because they are carnivores. They digest and use animal proteins more effectively than they would a vegetable protein. So the gluten is just it's a fractured ingredient. And when you're talking about corn, you're talking about something that's been genetically modified, and it's just not the best source of protein for them, and it's a low cost source of protein. So and then there's soybean meal, and the soybean Soy is actually a very good source of protein. However, it's an affordable source of protein. And what you get with soy is you get, again, a genetically modified ingredient. You're getting something that has as a crop has been treated with Roundup, and has been treated with glyc glyphosate. It's been exposed to chemical weed killer. And also soy, when it's cooked at a very high temperature, it becomes denatured and it can cause gastric distress. So soy, again, and corn gluten and byproduct meal, those are all and lower cost ingredients. And also when you're looking at soy has many names in pet food that without calling it soy can hide in pet food. So, you might not see soy as an ingredient, but you might see vegetable protein. You could see vegetable broth. You could see lecithin or natural flavoring. And more often than not, those are forms of soy or derivatives of soy. So if you're looking to avoid soy in your diet, you could be inadvertently having soy in the foods that you're feeding your dog if you don't know what to look for and you don't know the aliases of soy. So these are some of the not so good ingredients that you want to watch for when you're looking to source good, healthy, bioavailable sources of protein. So named ingredients, always better. Byproducts, bad. Fractured ingredients, not so good. Meat meals are okay. Byproduct meals, not so great. You want to go on and talk about carbohydrates? I will. Now that I have my mouse back.
You got it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good. We'll talk about carbohydrates, and here's our next poll. Carbohydrates are good sources of energy because carbs are nutrient dense, carbs are easy to digest, carbs are both nutritious and easy to digest, and carbs are not nutritious or easy to digest. Okay. And 47% of our participants feel that carbs are both nutritious and easy to digest, and 21% both feel that they are easy to digest, and another 21% feel that they are not nutritious or easy to digest. And it was kind of like a trick
Great.
question, because the answers really kind of could be all of the above at any given form or in any given time. So, Roger, let's talk about
Yes.
good carbohydrates.
Yes. Carbs are both and are not easy to digest. They are and they are not. So it depends on what carbs they are, is what they are. Very nutritious carbs, very easy to digest carbs are your whole grains, brown rice, ground rice, white rice, barley, potato, oatmeal, peas. These are all really good carbohydrates. What we use in all of our diets are barley, oatmeal, brown rice, white rice, and then peas, and a lot of our grain-free diets. Legumes are always really good carbohydrates as well. So those are some good carbohydrates there.
All right. Okay. So, and but when you say easy to digest, you mean from a standpoint of they are that they're able to be fully utilized by our pets, right? So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. So easy to digest means that when it gets into the stomach, it can get digested and be and the carbohydrate be used for the good,
Okay.
not so much for the bad.
Okay. Very good. Well, let's talk about some stuff that's not so good. Um, let's talk a little bit about what we have at CB Pet Market. Our nutritional mantra is no corn, no wheat, no soy, no animal byproducts, no artificial colors or preservatives. Was kind of one of the reasons why Nutrisource is a good fit in our stores. But um, no corn, no wheat, no soy. Is because it's a reactive in pets, and they really don't have a biological need for that. It can be argued whether or not dogs and especially cats have any biological need for carbohydrate, but carbohydrate in moderation is something that uh, is perfectly adequate. They've certainly adapted to digest and utilize carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are a good source of energy. But wheat and wheat flour and any combination uh, of wheat is or any fractionated or split type of wheat ingredient is not necessarily preferable. Is not a good ingredient for a dog to eat, nor is corn. And the reason why is because they're feed grade ingredients
Chemically
that.
enhanced.
I'm sorry.
Chemically enhanced.
And chemically enhanced and genetically modified, and they can cause and as a result can cause an inflammatory response in pets, even though um, you know it's argued that it's allergens, of course, are caused by an allergic reaction to a protein, but there is protein inside of corn and wheat and obviously soy. So there's an inflammatory response that can happen. Yeast overgrowth develops. They don't move through the system as smoothly as the grains that Roger talked about, and so they build up. They sit in the system longer, and then we have yeast buildup. We have gastric distress, and we have dogs that become reactive and have issues with skin and coat. So we like to avoid wheat, corn, and we like to avoid, though we don't um, though rice is a good ingredient, when you fractionate rice or when you split the ingredients and it becomes highly processed, it becomes less beneficial. We have rice flour listed here, but another low cost and less nutritious ingredient that is a carbohydrate source is a brewer's rice. And you see that in a lot of pet foods as well. And brewer's rice really is just like the broken off little fractured pieces of the regular whole grains of rice that haven't, that kind of pass through the sieve when they're getting processed through the plant. And the brewer's rice is usually what is, sent over to the brewer to make a different product out of. But because they're fractured, they're smaller, tinier pieces of the rice. They're not a whole intact piece of rice. They don't have all the nutritional value. So a brewer's rice I would put in that category as well, as even though it's not on the list. And peanut hulls, I mean, that's just that's just a throwaway ingredient that they thought this might be a good thing to put inside of a bag of pet food to act as a binder. And there are some carbohydrates that are there just to be a filler, and peanut hulls is one of them. And there are peanut allergies, and there are dogs that are allergic. So we have to be careful when we're looking at the carbohydrates that are in our pet foods, because they can cause allergic reactions and they can create gastric issues, and that would develop into chronic health issues. So there are, as as many good carbohydrate sources as there are in pet foods, there are also many bad carbohydrate pet sources. All right, I have to stop moving my mouse because I lost it again. Can you, is it possible for you to reset the poll? Thank you.
Yes.
All right, sorry. Can we go on to the next slide? I am so sorry. I'm not sure what's going on with my mouse.
There we go. I'm going to publish the poll.
Yes,
there
please.
We go. Yes.
Okay. Fats and oils. Omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids are essential to pet health and are added in some form to pet diets. True or false? Okay. You want, Roger, do you want to end the poll?
We ended the poll. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Stop playing with your mouse.
Yes.
So, yes, omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids are essential to pet health and are added in some form into all pet foods. It is true. So, some good fats and oils. I kind of sound like a broken record here, don't I? Named fish oils, named animal fats. That named product. Named salmon oil, named herring oil, chicken fat, lamb fat, are always good. You want to see that named source in the dot and it. You don't want to see, poultry fat. I'm stealing your thunder. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. No, you go right ahead. You go right ahead.
Really good plant oils as well. Sunflower oil, flaxseed oil. We use a lot of the flaxseed and sunflower in our Pure Vita line, being that, it is a, true single source diet. So meat protein diet. So taking those meats out and stuff makes it, a real good, true diet without any chicken or in any of the products, really accentuates that really good quality oil and fat for the animals that they need to give them good skin and coat with the omega-3s and omega-6s.
Very good. So the not so wonderful in fats are, and I guess you kind of did steal a little bit, when you have an animal fat or a fish oil or a poultry fat, where you don't have the source of the oil named. A fish oil could be any combination of fish. And sometimes, a fish oil can be a blended oil, and it might say fish oil on the label. But if you turn over the back of the bottle, it will list out the fish that is in the label, that is in the bottle, and so that you can see it might be herring or salmon or sardine or any combination. That's better. However, what they need to do is provide you with the ratio. Like, is it 20% salmon? Is it 20% and 30% herring? Because when you know the ratio, then you will also know, the percentage of the omega oils that are in there, because each species has a little bit of a different ratio of the omega-3 and the omega-6 oils in them. And it depends, and the other oils that go along with it that make up the omega-3s and the omega-6s. And so depending on what it is that you're trying to the supplement, if it's a chronic health condition, if it's a skin and coat, if it's some kind of a neurological condition or concern, you would want to see a particular profile. So those are the kind of questions that you have to ask, and there are you could go to the manufacturer and they should be able to provide you with that answer, hopefully. So in addition to knowing the percentages, it would also be good to know how the fat has been rendered, what the process was that to render the fat. If it was cold processed or heat processed, because that changes the composition of the oil, and it changes. It could denature some of the oils. It could change the proportion of the benefit that it provides as well. So oftentimes you'll see, like, especially with something like olive oil, you see at the grocery store, you see that it's cold pressed. We like to see that in addition with salmon oil and herring oil. We like to see our fish oils be cold pressed. And we also like to see our flaxseed and our salmon oil and our sunflower oils also cold pressed, because, heat also affects how long the oils will last as well. So, and also in some pet foods, when the oil is added to the pet food, it affects how stable the oil will be. So, like, if there are some pet foods where the oil is kind of sprayed on toward the end, some pet foods where the oil is added in the process and then cooked throughout. So, but when it's in the bag and when you're looking at the ingredient panel and you're looking at the guaranteed analysis, you have a good indication that those are viable ingredients that you're looking at, and that you're going to get the benefit of those those oils that are in the bag. So, but if you're looking to supplement, in addition to that, those are important questions to ask. The source of the oil, the proportion. If you're looking at a fish oil, if you're looking at any kind of oil that is a combination of a number of different oils, how it was processed as well is very important. So just to add to its naming and its processing, that's also important. So, okay. Okay, my mouse is gone again, so I'm sorry. Can you please move us on to the mineral?
Yes.
I apologize. I think it's my battery. Sorry, and my wireless mouse. Oh, wait, I got it. Okay, mineral absorption. Mineral absorption is enhanced when minerals are bound to organic compounds. True or false? Okay.
You got it, or am I getting it?
No, you got it. But
I think I'm getting it there.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, yes. So yes, that is true. Minerals, mineral absorption is enhanced when minerals are bound to an organic compound. Yes.
Okay.
So, understanding mineral absorption. First I'm going to talk about what is the role of a mineral. Minerals help enzymes. They help hormones, collagen and bone synthesis, coat condition, and immune function. So minerals play a large role in our pet's diet and also in our diets. So I'm going to be talking about the good, and Claudia can have all the bad stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So proteinated, chelated minerals, organic trace minerals. They're chelated. They're bound to a single amino acid. Proteinated trace minerals are bound to a amino acid and a peptide. So we use all proteinated minerals in our diets. So when you look at all of our diets, it's going to have a proteinated, it's going to say zinc proteinate on it. It's going to say magnesium proteinate on it. which means that there's a amino acid and a peptide hooked up to every one of them. So basically, what this means is when that mineral gets into the stomach, it can go right to work, go right into the bloodstream, and do its job a lot more efficiently. It doesn't have to search around in the stomach to find an amino acid to hook up to. It's already got one attached to it, so it can do its job a lot more efficiently. And when you protonate your minerals, it's going to have a much better absorption rate. And with us, by doing that, we can actually use less minerals in our diets. So as Claudia had said before, that meat and bone meal is a lot of excess minerals. We actually use a lot less minerals in our diets because we use the proteinated forms of them. So you're going to get a lot better absorption rate on that product, which means we can use less, going to give you a shinier, healthier skin and coat. So they provide minerals in the same type of compound found in nature, natural food like seeds and meats. So minerals play a very key role in our diets. So I think she's getting a new battery there. So yes. So chelated minerals are really good minerals. They have a amino acid bound to them. Proteinated minerals are kind of the best in the industry. They've got an amino acid and a peptide hooked up to them, so they're going to do the job more, the best. And then we'll let Claudia, since she's found her way back, talk about the.
It was the battery. I apologize. Yes.
There you go. Good.
Did you move on to the?
Well, you can talk about the sulfate and the oxides, the cheaper, the inorganics.
Okay. So, inorganic trace elements, the great way to tell when you're looking at a bag of pet food is the minerals that end in the oxides, the carbonates, the sulfates, and the chlorides. Those are your telltale signs that those minerals are, first of all, are harder to pronounce, and they are, at least to me, they are they're going to be in a larger quantity in most cases than you would see with a protonated or chelated mineral, because they are not as effectively absorbed in the system. They have to use more of them. And when you add more minerals to a pet food so that they can be better absorbed, it's taxing the system, your pet systems in other ways. So it's making it, the liver is working harder to remove those toxins, minerals. The kidneys are working a little bit harder. The digestive system is being taxed a little bit more to try to digest and get rid of the excess. We want to feed everything in just the proper proportions. We certainly don't want to feed excess, because anything excess is, you just have to work harder to eliminate it. So there are also long-term chronic health issues that can develop over time from consuming a diet that is too high in minerals, or in a mineral contents that just are not as easily digested. It's just much more taxing on the system long-term over time. So we really want to make sure that our pets are getting a diet that has just the right amount of minerals that are being effectively absorbed and utilized. And with protonated minerals, that is, that's what we get. With sulfated and oxide, with inorganic trace elements, you're getting more minerals than your pet can effectively absorb, just so that they can meet that minimum requirement that they need. But it's just adding more to the mix that isn't necessary. So I don't know. Did I explain that properly, Roger? I think
Yes.
maybe. I'm sorry. I was distracted by my
Nope,
mouse.
you
I
did. You're
apologize.
good.
All right. Thank you. All right. So then let's move on to preservatives. Let me get the next poll out. This will be our final poll of the evening. And what makes a preservative a natural preservative? It exists in nature as is. It is not derived from chemical processing, or it is derived from natural ingredients. Okay. All right. 23% feel that it exists in nature as is. 47% it is not derived from chemical processing, and 28% say it is derived from natural ingredients. So we're got a good split there. Roger,
That is a good.
let's talk about some.
Yes. Yes. So I think they're all pretty right.
Mhm.
They're all pretty right. So definitely. Yeah, good preservatives. Natural preservatives are always going to be good. You want natural preservatives, not chemical preservatives. Vitamin C, vitamin E, citrus acid, rosemary, really good natural preservatives. When you're looking at dry dog foods and cat foods, your preservatives are good. You got to have a preservative in the food. If you don't have a preservative in the food, it's not going to be able to last for very long at all. About 2 weeks, you're going to have a shelf life, and then it's going to be bad. It's going to go rancid on you. So without having these natural preservatives or the preservatives in it, that the product can go bad unless you get it in the refrigerator and or frozen diets. So when you're talking kibble, you want to have preservatives in. You want to be them to be make sure they're natural preservatives, vitamin C, vitamin E, citrus acid, rosemary. Easy to read names is what you want.
Yep. Let's talk a little bit about vitamin C. The vitamin C in the KLN foods and Nutrisource, is that where do you know where that is sourced?
So yes, we do. I have a certificate of origin. The company that we get all of our vitamins from is Thorough. It's THROUW, Nutrition International, and they've got a certificate of origin saying that it comes from the United States. They do all of our vitamin packs. And the other company that we use for our mineral packs is Alltech Technologies, and they are all from the United States as well.
Okay, very good. Do you when and one of the questions we get often too in the stores about, we talked a little bit about preservatives, but we also talk about, is it better to keep the food, our kibble, in the bag, or remove it from the bag into an airtight container? How do you recommend that we?
I say keep it in the bag in the container. So put it in an airtight container inside the bag. The issue that I hear a lot and I deal with a lot is people will dump the bag of food in a container, which there's really no problem with that there. But when you just keep dumping new bag into new bag into new bag, and you don't really clean that container out, that's when you get all the issues, because a lot of us spray on the fats and spray on the oils after we cook it, and then what basically happens is those get lined on the inside of the container, and if you're not washing them, you're not cleaning them, then that's what goes bad. So if you're not going to clean that container on a regular basis after every 2 or 3 bags, leave it in the bag it came in, because then you don't have to worry about cleaning that bin out.
All right.
But if you want to dump in the bin, go ahead, dump in the bin, but clean the bin.
Okay. All right. Good. So the chemical preservatives, of course, are not good. And chemical preservatives, including ethoxyquin, BHA, BHT, and we still see these today in some of um, the bargain brands of pet food that are out on the market. Um, the preservatives, you're going to find them really kind of down at the very end of the ingredient panel. So if you have any question about or names that you cannot pronounce down at the end of the ingredient panel, they may be preservatives. So you would want to ask those questions. You can ask if you're in our store. You certainly can ask any one of us. But many of the pet food websites, I know, especially Nutrisource and the other brands we carry, they have pretty extensive websites where they would help you explaining the ingredients in the bag, but also you can reach out to them, and any reputable pet food company would be more than happy to share with you, like Roger did tonight, where their preservatives are sourced and their minerals are sourced, and also, if their preservatives are chemical preservatives, or even to say, these are the preservatives on our bag. These are the 6 ingredients that where you're using as preservatives. There should be full disclosure and transparency. We would encourage that, and we certainly would encourage you to ask those questions. So, all right, and then one final thing that we really, when we talk about pet food and we talk about the good, bad, and the ugly, I like to talk about probiotics and prebiotics and what helps kind of aid all of these ingredients in the digestion process, and kind of bringing balance to the system, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. So Roger, I'm going to let you take this slide,
Awesome.
because this is really what every pet food has probiotics, but KLN and Nutrisource have a little bit something different, and I wanted Roger to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about that before we get to our questions.
Yes. So we have something in all of our food. It's called a Good for Life system. Basically, it's the proteinated trace minerals. We use organic selenium yeast, which is a supercharged antioxidant. We use the YESAC probiotic and biomass prebiotic. Every industry, every company out in the industry uses probiotics. Very few actually use a prebiotic as well. So your probiotic is going to be all those really hard to read names at the bottom of the ingredient panel. Dried lactobacillus aphthous fermentation products, dried endocarossus faecium fermentation products. There's a really long Latin words. That's all that great that yeast culture that's going to give you the great gut health. It's going to help the flora in the stomach be very natural and stuff like that there. So it controls the intestinal tract. It has a great pH balance in your stomach and stuff like that there. We add that extra biomass, which is the prebiotic. The prebiotic that we use is called brewer's dried yeast. And the big function of that is it's food for the probiotics, so the probiotics can do their job a lot more efficiently. So it's going to really help that gut, that prebiotic or that probiotic do its job a lot more efficiently. It also is going to take the bad bacteria out of the gut by basically, it's food for that bad bacteria. So the good bacteria can come in and push that bad bacteria out with ease. It's going to help really, strengthen that stomach and the intestines for you, for your animals. It's going to stop diarrhea, stops gas. Stops gas. believe it or not, and it helps stop vomiting. A lot of people, don't know, but 70 to 80% of the immune system is located in the stomach. So, it's really good to help that immune system grow as well.
Okay. All right. Roger, we have several questions. I am going to, and please, anybody, if you have questions, you can continue to type them in now. But we're going to start answering some questions. Geraldine asks, "Is a grain gluten-free dog food a balanced food? It contains grains, just not grain gluten." I would say absolutely. It can certainly be balanced, even though
Yes, it can definitely be balanced. Yeah,
absolutely.
there's a lot of really good gluten-free grains out there. We use barley in a lot of our products, and barley is not a gluten-free diet. But there's a lot of really good grain-inclusive ingredients that you can use. That we use a lot of them too. But the barley that we use is not gluten-free.
Okay. And Chris asks a very good question. If meal is simply a meat without the water, why is it not defined as dehydrated? And part of that, I think, Roger, that has to do with AFCO, and how
Yes.
you can define what you're allowed to call an ingredient according to AFCO regulations.
Yes. So AFCO rules and regulations are very strange, very weird, and how you can classify an ingredient. Dehydration is just one form that you would make a meal. You can dehydrate it. I think what a lot of the meals are, it's kind of cooked. They cooked out the water. It's not kind of dehydration. It's not kind of dehydrated like a dehydrator. But funny story with AVCO rules and regulations. We started using seaweed in some of our products, which was a really great product. But AVCO made us listed as an ingredient called fat product. We had to list it as fat product, or not seaweed, algae. We started using algae, yes. And AVCO, we had to list it as fat product. So we stopped using it because we just when you just put fat product in your ingredient panel, nobody wants it. But we were using algae, which is a really good product. But AVCO, wouldn't let us list it as algae.
Okay. Yeah, AFCO, they kind of, one of the things about AFCO is you can't really speak to the quality of your ingredient per AFCO in an AFCO definitions. Like you can't say human grade. They have restrictions on the quality of the language, the adjectives that you can use. And part of that is because it's AFCO, the American Association of Feed Control Officers. They pet food is I don't want to say controlled, but it comes under the purview of feed, just like livestock. So it really, we don't think of our pets as livestock. But in the eyes of AFCO, they're all treated the same. A dog is the same as a cow, as a sheep, as a goat, but they're not to us. So, there's a little bit of a disconnect between, the AFCO guidelines and what we feel as humans, as pet parents. So, Tracy asks, why is chicken meal good, but beef or bone meal is not? Well, chicken meal is good and beef meal is good, but bone meal as a source of protein is not good. Right, Roger? What
Yes,
do you think?
yeah. Beef meal is good. Name source: beef, chicken, turkey, lamb, bison. When you have a named meat, you're great. But if it just says meat meal, what is that meat? Could it be possum? Could it be squirrel? We don't know what that meat is when it just lists meat meal. So you want to see an actual named
Right.
meal in front of it. So that's, yeah. And there's some misconception when we always talk chicken, but when we're talking chicken, we're talking pretty much all named meat proteins.
Right. And then, bone meal, we have, and I know I personally have supplemented, some of my puppies with a little bit of bone meal, depending on the stage of growth that they're in, because bone meal helps with, bone development, but you need to have the calcium and phosphorus ratio has to be right. And it's not we don't use it as a source of protein. We use it as just a supplement during a particular stage of development. So to support bone health. But it's, like I said, it's not part of their diet. So, and bone meal, you have to be really careful about where it's sourced and the amount of mineral that it is. But yeah, so, but when we talked earlier in the slides, it was meat/bone meal, and believe it or not, meat/bone meal is a single ingredient. That it is an actual product from a rendering facility, like where they slaughter animals and they process them. Meat bone meal is an ingredient that a fertilizer company can buy, or a feed company can buy, that they would feed to cattle or sheep. So it is an ingredient in itself. It's not like meat or bone meal, it's meat bone meal. So, and that's what really we were talking about in that slide. Iris asks, where do eggs come from in the mix? Eggs are actually a really great source of protein, right?
Eggs are the highest source of protein.
Right.
Yes. Eggs are a great source of protein. They've got the highest amount of protein of any other ingredient out there. So that would be right up there, with your named meat proteins.
But unfortunately, to have a pet food made from just eggs would be really, really, very expensive, right? But we do sell, we do carry at CB Pet Market, we do carry a pet food made from eggs, because it is it can be considered a vegetarian food, because eggs can be, depending on where you sit on the vegetarian spectrum, it can be considered a vegetarian food, but it is a very pricey food. But for some pets that might have allergies, it's a great option. But eggs, they always say eggs are the perfect food. So yeah, but it would be
That's a great question.
tremendously expensive. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Iris asks, what about pea protein?
Pea
protein.
Pea protein. Yes, those are your pea carbohydrates. Yeah.
And so pea protein is a decent source of protein, but again, it's you're splitting an ingredient to just get at the protein. It shouldn't be the sole source of protein in a diet. And oftentimes it's added in a grain-free diet to help increase the amount of protein in the diet. So it's not, it is a good ingredient. It's just, should it be the sole source of protein or the primary source of protein in the diet? No. And then Chris asks, surprised to see potato in the good column, sweet potato perhaps, but what about regular potatoes?
There's good and bad of potatoes and sweet potatoes. Potatoes are a good carbohydrate. But if you're diabetic, or if you know anybody that's got a diabetic dog or not, potatoes will turn to sugar in an instant. So that's one that we stay clear of as a company. We don't use potatoes in any of our ingredients. We use sweet potatoes in a couple formulas, in the Pure Vita, but no potatoes in our diets. but potatoes are actually a decent carbohydrate for most dogs.
Right.
But be cautious of that, turn to sugar for
Right. And
diabetics.
right. So there are some dogs that will tolerate a diet with potatoes relatively well. So, you just have to know your pet and know, you know, where they are and, what's best for them. So, and gauge accordingly. So, um, true. I mean, you know, not all of the good ingredients are always good for every pet. One of the questions we get often is, what's the best pet food on the market? And our answer is
You can
always,
answer that. Can I answer that? Can I answer
yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 yeah. Go ahead.
There is no best pet food on the
That's right.
market. The
That's right.
best pet food is whatever's best for your particular dog.
Right.
I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've always said that, I've got really great products, but my food's not the best for every single dog out
Hmm.
there. Probably the best for your dog, but it might not be best for your neighbor's dog.
Right. And, as much as, I said I wasn't going, name brands or bash, I have neighbors that have been feeding kibbles and bits to their dogs for years and they're healthy. And, I can't, and I can't, I don't have a comeback for that. Yep, they're healthy. That's great. It, it can be that it could be fine. I wish I could eat Oreos all day long, every day. That would be a wonderful diet, but it wouldn't work for me. So yeah, so we try our very best. What we try to accomplish is to have all pets to have the optimum level of nutrition so that they could lead the healthiest life for the longest period of time. Um, so let's see. Patricia asks, manufacturers give recommended daily servings, but it is that a guideline. The AKC site gives recommendations based on age and breed. What is what is the best guideline for feeding? Oh, Roger.
So feeding guidelines. So that's a very good question. It's a tricky question as well. I always say go off of the recommendations from the manufacturers, whatever on the bags. And also, you look at the kcals. When you're buying a bag of food, it's always important. I always say to look at the kcals, how much caloric calories are in each cup of food that you're giving your dog. Nutrisource, we are a very nutrient dense diet, so all of our foods are very high in kcals. So with our food, if you look at our feeding recommendations compared to some of our competitors of the same, basic structure, you're going to see that our recommendations are lower than theirs as far as what you should feed that dog or cat. And the big reason is because of the caloric calories. So that's the big thing with feeding. It's like humans. We require so many calories a day. Same with our pets. They require so many calories a day.
Yes, feeding guidelines are just that. They're guidelines. So let's see. Okay. Um, Iris adds that multiple studies have linked BHA to cancer and reproductive disorders. That is absolutely correct. So any food that has BHA, and you would see it on the label, is one absolutely to
Numerous.
avoid.
Big BHA is a big chemical preservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cindy asks, does Nutrisource make their own chicken meal? And if not, where do you source it from?
So our chicken meal comes from the United States. We don't make our own ingredients ourselves. We do make our own slurry. So we'll buy the raw chicken meal, the raw ingredients, and then we'll put it in our own slurry mix and make the slurry ourselves. And basically, by doing our own slurry, it creates a little bit better palatability because it's fresher.
So you buy all the individual ingredients and you mix them together, but you buy
Correct.
right. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so our chicken meal comes from the United States. I have a list of all of our ingredients that we publish to anybody who wants to see it. They can read, um, find out where any of our ingredients come from, which is pretty awesome.
Okay. Lisa asks, are lentils a good source of fiber? One of my dogs is on an LID dog food. Should this be long term? Her vet put her on it. It's and my probiotic has kelp in it. Is that good?
Um, Lentils are a really good source. Yes, lentils are a really good source of fiber. They're really good, carbohydrate as well. So lentils are good food. If your vet's putting you on a limited ingredient diet with lentils, that's a good vet. So
Okay. So, and I'm assuming the LID is, I shouldn't assume that it might be because of an issue with an allergy. Um, if it's a single source protein, I would ask you more questions, Lisa, about whether or not you should be on that particular LID long term, or maybe if you should rotate to something different down the road. And your probiotic has kelp. Is that good? Kelp, yes, it can be good, unless, of course, maybe you have a dog that you're breeding. And the iodine sometimes in kelp can interfere with the production of sperm. That's what my vet has told me, so I stay away from kelp. But that would be the only thing that I would think of that would be a negative about the probiotic with kelp in it. I think kelp is a really great source of minerals too, actually. So, I would ask you just a couple more questions about the reason why you're on the LID, and if maybe long term you wanna consider switching, to another novel protein down the road, just to mix it up a little bit, without trying to upset anything that the vet is recommending. Um, okay. It's okay that the LID is not grain free. Lisa's got a whole list of questions here. Yes, Beth, this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the website, but everybody who's participating in the webinar is going to get a copy of it, of the webinar emailed to them. What are our thoughts about dehydrated raw food? Tracy asks.
I personally feel raw is the best way that you can feed. So dehydrated raw food is a really good food. It's probably the most expensive way you're going to feed, but it's okay. If I'm okay. We don't make personally Nutrisource. We don't make any raw food or any dehydrated raw foods. But as as a human being, as somebody that's been in the industry for 25 years, I know that raw is the best way you can feed.
We believe that raw feeding is the closest to nature for dogs and cats, the closest to their ancestral way that they ate. We're proponents of it. However, we recognize and we realize that it's not something that is meant for everybody. But a little bit of raw is a great thing to add to any pet's diet, whether it be dehydrated or actual frozen raw. And I know there's some aversion to feeding raw frozen, but if you could always sprinkle some dehydrated raw on a bit of kibble, add a little bone broth to kibble to enhance the palatability, even though Nutrisource is extremely palatable as it is, but it also increases the nutrition. So we think it's great. Dehydrated raw, as Roger said, is probably the most expensive way to feed because you're taking raw food and removing all the moisture from it. So ounce for ounce, it's the most expensive way to feed your dog. But it's great. raw frozen, is also, is also great. But I'm a raw feeder, but I also feed kibble as well. I think that dogs deserve the very best that we can afford to give them. And there's plenty of really great nutrition in every aisle, at most pet food stores, unless you're shopping at the grocery store. Um, let's see. Okay. Then actually we're getting that's about it, I think. Um, Elisa asks, she's feeding a basic line of food and she switches off between turkey, salmon, lamb, and duck. Oh, this is a good question. She thought grain-free would be better, but she can see on the label that there's pea starch. Um, so let's talk a little bit about rotating. Let's let
Oh,
let's
yes.
let this be our last question of the evening because we're over on time.
Okay.
But it is great to rotate between proteins when you're feeding food, and a company, a Nutrisource. It's a great food to rotate. If you buy a bag of chicken and rice, as long as your dog doesn't have any, or your cat doesn't have any allergies, you know, buy beef and rice, or the next time you come in, or woodland, or try the element series. Rotating is a wonderful way to switch things up for your pet and provide a different amino acid profile, and change up the nutrition. Roger, do you have anything specific to talk
We
about?
Yes, we really recommend rotational diet. There's a lot of really great advantages to feeding a rotational diet. I personally feed my dogs and cats everything that we make, all the foods that we make, the limited ingredients, the high meat protein, the chicken and rice, the lamb and rice, the with grain, the grain free Nutrisource. I'm always rotating. I'll buy one bag. The next bag is totally something different every time, with my dogs. There's no problems feeding a rotational diet. It's going to give that dog that a different amino acid. It's going to give them that different meat protein. Gives them the different grains and carbohydrates. So it really mixes it up for them and gives them that variety that you and I normally get. A lot of people say, well, you don't eat, chicken and rice every meal. Why should we make our dogs? So, a lot of people feel guilty by feeding their dog the same thing all the time. So, rotating it up is always good. I talk to many people that are completely opposite. I have to feed this chicken and rice because that's the only thing my dog will eat. Yeah. And I'm like, here, try a sample of one of our other ones if you want to try to, mix it up for them. And they're like, nope, just this one formula is all I'm going to eat. So we are really big components of rotational diets. And that's why we have such a array of products, in our grain in formulas. We have a chicken and rice, a lamb and rice, beef and rice, trout and rice, and turkey and rice. We have 5 different, meat protein diets in our, grain friendly diets. We have 7 different meat proteins in our limited ingredient Pure Vita, and we have 8 different meat proteins in our Nutrisource grain-free diets. So we've got a array of products that you can rotate throughout in our products, which is what we recommend.
All right. I am, and with that, I am just typing into the chat bar for everybody my email address, because if you have questions that we didn't answer, or you think of another question, you can email me anytime. I won't answer you till tomorrow, but you can email me, and I will get you an answer, or I will direct your question to somebody who can get you an answer. And we will end our presentation for the evening. And I want to thank you all for participating. This was great. I hope you enjoyed the webinar this evening. And I do apologize for my technical difficulties with my mouse. Next time, I will be sure to change my battery in my mouse before every webinar, so that doesn't happen to me again. And Roger, thank you for pinch hitting. That was great. I'm
Yes.
glad that you were able to do that.
I'll send you a
Again,
bill.
yeah, thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you all for attending this webinar this evening. We have another webinar in a couple of weeks with Dr. Quest, veterinarian. We're going to talk about DCM and what some of the pet food companies are doing with regard to research on DCM. So look for that invitation in your inbox. We'll talk with you all soon. Thank you all.
We added taurine to all of our foods.
Yep. Have a very, very happy Thanksgiving, and we will talk soon. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Have
Bye-bye.
a great night.
Bye.